very lucky. Please take your seats now. As I started to say, we are very, very lucky to have Richard Koral as one of our leaders. Richard studied at the Humanist Institute and holds a Doctor of Ministry in Interfaith Pastoral Counseling from the Hebrew Union College, as well as degrees from New York University and the New York Law School. Richard was a member of the White Plains Ethical Society for many years and served as its president in the late 90s and the early 2000s. Richard has served on the board of the American Ethical Union, our national federation, from 2012 to 2015. As you know, today is our annual Fair Share Giving celebration, along with a yummy lasagna luncheon. And it's my pleasure now to invite Richard to tell us all about it. Richard?
There are a couple of differences between me and Pat, and this is one of them. Well, hi everybody. Hello. Delighted to have a chance to talk to everybody. And of course, today is a special day because today is our annual Fair Share Giving and Community Meeting and Luncheon. And it's a lasagna luncheon by decree. So today I'll be talking about our society and what it means to me and what it means to you and to the city at large. And later we'll have a report from Liz Singer, the president of the board, about the state of the society. So we meet about every time this year when the year's end first comes into sight, and we can see on the horizon the beginning of another fiscal year. Yes, we're both a community and an organization, and fiscal years and annual budgets are part of an organization. The nuts and bolts of an organization sometimes seem like impediments to the real purpose of our meetings, but in fact, the nuts and bolts keep it together. And unless the coffee is hot and the ceiling is dry, there are no meetings. But we don't really come here for the organization. We come for the community. We come to see our friends. We come because the Sunday morning talk shows are too depressing. We come to see evidence of that light at the end of the tunnel that's been promised. We come for larger purposes, for both oneself and for a community to build. We here find that in ethical culture and in the humanism that's at its core, there is a path to meaning, a path to purpose, and a path through engagement. We're together on a journey towards understanding, and as the founder, Felix Adler, liked to say, towards our personal ethical perfection. What we have here in ethical culture really is unique and special. It's rare and it's poorly understood. We come here because we understand it and we need this. Earlier in the fall, the Society hosted a symposium of humanist academics. There were several professors from the University of Utrecht in Holland, some professors from the United States, and one of the Dutch professors spoke about each human being's inherent structural need for association and community and for personal attachment. Well, as health is often thrown into relief by the study of illness, and as systems are understood by their failures, she told the story of a subject of her study, someone she called Mr. S, who is a true hermit. While he lives in the city, he has no attachments. Now, it required years of patient perseverance to even get him to talk to her. But with him, she was able to explore the dimensions of a life without the constellation of attachments that every human being must construct to have a life as we ordinarily view it, a life of meaning. Self-realization depends on navigating these links. There's a balance to be constructed between autonomy on the one hand and community. Now, people will acknowledge and they'll negotiate their own individuation as well as their tie to others. So each of these factors is necessary, yet each factor contradicts the other. The ironic truth is that what we owe to our community, what is its claim upon us, what we must share with the community, can also give us the greatest satisfaction and can accord us the greatest meaning. Take, for example, there's a world of difference going, say, to the mall. There are thousands of people there. There's places to sit, places to watch, places to read. There's even a food court. But, of course, there's little interaction. Everyone is a stranger. So it's not enough that there are people. And compare that to a shared community, a group with a unified purpose and meaningful goals. In community is where people thrive. There they achieve their greatest accomplishments and their deepest fulfillment. Now, ethical culture, as we always like to recount the story, was born in the age of reform in New York City in the later 19th century. New York was well into the industrial age, but it was before the era of government support systems. Poverty was ingrained in the big cities. It's hard to imagine what life was really like then. Sewage flowing in the streets, cholera and typhoid breaking out commonly. The newly formed ethical movement was a group of reform-minded people from different backgrounds. Remember Felix Adler's adage, deed before creed, basically inviting everyone from every origin to join in the job. These people who tackled numerous real-world challenges and made small but creative contributions to society. So these stories are well known to us. We always like to recount our great, the wonderful past, the district nursing service, the settlement house movement, the tenement house reform, child labor regulation, free kindergarten and free vocational housing reform, and Blythedale Hospital. Ethical culture collaborated with others to form institutions, some of which are still around today, like the NAACP, the ACLU. Public service is built into the DNA of ethical culture. The impetus to strive for reform, to serve those in need, emerges from a powerful sense of moral duty. There is a recognition among ethical culture members that injustices must not stand, that people have a duty to come forward, that civilization is what we make it, and that a humane and caring world can be built with optimism, intentionality, creativity, and drive. At that humanist symposium, one of the speakers was a professor from Columbia. He holds the Dewey Chair. So he spoke of how humanism's unique contribution is that it recognizes a code of ethics that does not stand on a foundation of Holy Scripture. It derives from human experience. Very Deweyan, of course. Holy Scripture, be it the Bible, the Koran, the Bhagavad Gita, these do not align with what we would expect these days from a code of ethics. In those revered and sacred texts, there's slavery, concubinage, stoning to death for a wide range of offenses like blasphemy. Magic and divine intervention are what controls people's lives. So we cannot rely on these ancient texts to guide us today. Instead, we do something a lot more complicated. We look to our own collective conscience. Our ethics derive from our collective human experience through a process of consensus with a universal suffrage that will legislate ethical standards based on our shared experience. We say that all voices must be heard. We take as a starting point that we shall honor the inherent worth of every human being, including those outside our own tribe, even those across a frontier. Now, modern liberal religions are more adept these days than they used to be about picking and choosing what parts of the Bible they will quote and what parts they'll ignore. But at the same time, there's also a resurgence of evangelical and other literal followers of the Bible. Periodically, over the years, there are revivals of this literalism, and people are swept up by the passions. Evangelical Christians who profess a belief in the literal truth of the Bible, the most extreme Protestant tradition, comprise over 25% of the population of the United States, according to the Pew Research Center and their study of the landscape of religions. So we don't realize, we don't respect sometimes how unique we really are. We may feel that we are reasonable, normal, typical, but surveys keep showing that vast swaths of the population here in the United States continue to believe that their lives are affected, channeled by spirits and other magical forces. So it's not really typical for a group of people who are not scientists ourselves, most of us here are not scientists, to be such supporters and promoters of science and a science-based understanding of reality. According to the latest Pew Research Center's Religious Landscape Study, only 3.1% of Americans describe themselves as atheist. 4% describe themselves as agnostic. So this is a pretty small minority. Of those denoted as the nones, that is to say, those who are unaffiliated with any denomination, how many of them are really likely to join an ethical society? 49% of them are certain in their belief of a supernatural being. So I would suggest we're always going to be a small community, as a group of people who act congregationally and who are non-theists. As with a clear plan and mission, I should say we do have a clear plan and mission which we understand and that we pursue, but most other people really don't get. When they know us, they can be supportive, they can compliment us, but they often don't get it. Well, there is good news on that front, and the good news is that those who profess to be non-believers, 70% of them are under the age of 50, 40% of them are under the age of 30. So there's a young and growing cohort. Meanwhile, more than 2/3 of those who describe themselves as atheists describe themselves also as being to some degree spiritual and express a feeling of wonder at the universe. 80%, in fact, favor stricter environmental regulations, so there's a conscience, and all that according to the Pew Research. But these young, conscience-driven, non-theistic people are among the nones, and by definition, there isn't a strong popular base for congregational life. So again, we remain pretty much a special breed, not found in many other places. Among those of us who are here, there is a strong sense of ethics, of charity, of responsibility, and service, which does not come from a fear of a post-life damnation or a post-life reward. Instead, it comes from an inherent optimism that a humane and caring world can be built. Like the song we often sing, ours is a simple faith. It has that line, heaven is in this place every day. And from having observed and learned what works and what makes for a peaceful coexistence and what enables people to grow and to thrive. Algernon Black, the great ethnocultural leader of the mid-20th century, said, "Whatever there is of divine power in the universe, it must express itself through people. If there is a power that makes for righteousness, it is in the hearts and minds and actions of people." So what we strive for is the creation of a safe place for people who are good without a God, people for whom ethics is their foundational core for constructing a life, as for constructing a civilization. These people who understand that a society based on compassion will provide for those who have trouble getting traction in their own lives, will assure justice where there is strife, and will recognize that we must and that we can make the long-term cooperative plans needed to ensure that our civilization is sustainable on this small planet floating in a sea of darkness. Our people here are concerned about these and other issues and recognize that with personal engagement and commitment, something can be done. You see that in the personal service work that so many of our members engage in. Last week, we sent out a letter asking people to tell us what volunteer work they do, just to get a sense of the scope and the breadth of the personal contribution that many of our members make in their own lives for their community and for the city. Now, I know there were some glitches in the system, and people were telling me they couldn't get through on a lot of it, but a number of people did, and we got some sampling. And the range of volunteer work that people are engaged in is really vast. For example, people reported in as marshaling demonstrations and protests, conducting practice job interviews for the formerly incarcerated, supporting those in immigration court, active in Get Out the Vote campaigns and voter registration drives. Some people work in community food pantries, another in a soup kitchen, another does small claims court arbitration as volunteer, another does after-school tutoring. Someone else had volunteered health services in Rwanda. Professional continuing education as a volunteer, climate education and activism, someone working at the Bronx Zoo, an art museum docent, and of course here, overnight monitoring in the homeless shelter, assisting the televisiting service for children with incarcerated parents, introducing books to third graders. And then, of course, on top of that, there's actual work here, the committee participation to make the society work, working on the Outlook, working to make the Sunday morning experience work, helping with the Sunday school, and visiting the homebound through the caring committee. Well, in the spirit of Felix Adler's adage, act so as to elicit the best in others and thereby elicit the best in yourself, we ask people to share what they feel they've received and what they learned from their volunteer experience. And there was a range of responses that showed the richness of the experience in reaching out to others. Some reported a sense of empowerment. It makes me feel useful or to feel good to do what I can. A sense of camaraderie with other people who are also engaged. It helps me to understand other people's realities. It helps remind me of the value of unconditional service to others. I learn new things from the recipients of my service. It is so gratifying as to be life-changing to see the rewards and the responses from the people I teach. To work with 8-year-old kids, that's a wonderful age. People said it taught me that every contribution makes a difference, that people have similar goals. It taught me to be more aware of other individuals' lives. It opened me to a world I would not have otherwise seen. It taught me patience, tolerance, respect for those who are struggling. It taught me that collaboration is powerful. Well, if you want to add your experience, go back to that email from last week and try. It really does work if you hit the button the right way, or you hit the right button. And maybe we can make something more out of this with a broader survey. So with all this help reminds us that giving is a powerful dynamic. It helps both parties to the transaction, both helping the recipient and the one who gives. I was reminded of a story that I read recently where for 40 years a woman worked with the Mazatec Indians in southwestern Mexico. And during this time, she discovered some interesting things about these interesting people. For instance, among them, people would seldom wish someone well. Not only that, they're hesitant to teach someone or to share with each other. If asked, who taught you to bake bread? The village baker would say, I just know, meaning he acquired the knowledge without anyone's help. And the woman said that this odd behavior stems from the Indians' concept of a limited good. They believe there's only so much good, so much knowledge, so much love to go around. To teach another means you might drain yourself of knowledge. To love a second child means you have to love the first child less. To wish someone well, have a good day, means you just have given away some of your own happiness, which can never be recaptured. Well, of course, we know that's not the case. We know from our own experience that we do not run out of love. We know from our own experience that friendship begets more friendship, that generosity begets more generosity, that love begets more love. We know that by building a better ethical society, one that serves its members and serves the community in which it's situated, a society that nurtures its own participants and energizes them to reach out and do further good works, a society that supports and inspires people to contribute to the overarching project of making our world more democratic, more just, more compassionate, more sustainable, then we will be fulfilling our mission. We are here to make this a better world, to make a caring world, a world and a civilization that serves all peoples, all ages, all races, all genders, all species. That's what we're here for. That's why there is an ethical society, and that's why it's our job to assure its future. NYSEC has been serving New York and the United States for 143 years. Well, that legacy didn't make itself. It was made by the members of each generation. So today, we are the generation of this moment that stands at the brink of a new era. It cannot be predicted what the future will bring. It may be difficult. There may be new culture wars that we can't anticipate. Today, democracy in many places is on the defensive. But there must be a home for humanists somewhere. There must be an oasis for progressive thought somewhere. There must be a sanctuary for the brave but ordinary people whose ideas will carry this legacy on someplace. So, again from Algernon Black, who explained what heritage means. He said, heritage is a promise. It is of the future, not of the past. It calls us to a new frontier of growth in the wisdom of our interrelations. Heritage is a commitment and a faith. So that's why there's a Fair Share Giving Sunday every year. It is I'll tell you what it is. It is a time to remind ourselves that if we believe that we build our own futures, if we understand that civilization is made not by miracles of benevolent spirit beings, but by the hard work of people like us. Here is how it's done. So it's up to us to throw in and make a meaningful contribution to the project we're engaged in. A contribution of time, of creativity, of goodwill, but also a contribution of your hard-earned money. Without all of that, these efforts will be sterile and futile. Without all of that, so I ask you on behalf of all of you, yourselves, on behalf of all of us, to be generous with this year's pledge. So next, we're going to have a report from Liz.
Let's see, is this slightly too high? Or can you see me? I think it will do. So this meeting is, of course, our Fair Share Giving. It's also, we have combined our community meeting at the same time. So I want to talk about the society and us as a community. And personally, I have to say, let me make a comment. I have to say I'm amazed every time I walk through the double doors on 64th Street. I'm amazed at this incredible place known as the New York Society for Ethical Culture. It's only been 6 years since I stepped through those doors and arrived at this 110-year-old landmark building. And I am proud to be a member and proud to be president of your society. And this is what I want to stress. It is your society. It's a society filled with the most incredible human riches that I've ever seen. And I, too, have a quote from Felix Adler. And this quote is, "Let us live truly while we live," which I love that quote. Now, that quote is what we as members ensure at our society. We bring life and make the society alive. Each and every one of you as members are stakeholders in this society. Whether your interests are philosophy, climate change, humanities, operations, ethics in action, or the arts. By being involved and creating, you and you alone push the society towards the mission on a daily basis. This luncheon is not about a percent or an amount of a pledge, but it's about ownership and buy-in to what we all do on a daily basis. Many of you have noticed our growing audiences at our events, especially Sunday Platform, the Jazz Cafe, the new Ethical Dilemmas. They're all new, and all of our continuing programs are rich and abundant. But the one thing that I want to stress is that this is your society. Let's continue to build it and make it rich beyond belief. They will come. They are coming. We just have to convert them to members. Now, I want to give you just a couple of highlights that are going on in the society that many of you may not be aware of. Now, one is we have an ongoing commitment to public relations now through the AEU. This public relations firm has given us a visible presence in the media. So this is something that many times we aren't able to communicate to you on a basis that many of us involved are aware of it. Over the last 18 months, we have had 40 hits in different media, whether it's digital or paper or magazines. Now, what a hit is an article or an editorial or a quote directly based on this New York society. That's a lot of recognition that we're getting, and it's in major papers, New York Times, the Atlantic Monthly, the Washington Post we were even picked up. And so we do have this commitment, and it's an outreach for ethical culture, but beyond that, we have become, in New York City, a place to quote. So many of the papers now come to us and want our opinion because we are out in the media so much. We've become a recognized quoting, someone to quote. The other thing I do want to bring to your attention is our school-society relationship. The school is part of our history, and this relationship has improved greatly due to the work of our operational committee and the school society committee. Ann Clayson remains on the Fieldston board, the Fieldston and NYC board, and she is on that board as the NYSEC leader emerita. And she's also going to be a critical part of the creative process that the school has taken on to expand their ethics program and their ethics curriculum. So she will continue to be involved in that. So as we move forward and we have our shared experiences in 2020, and we are a community dedicated to becoming better individuals and making the world a better place with intellectual curiosity, exploration, civical actions, climate change, and dedication to bringing out the best in one another. Let us share our ideals, hopes, and aspirations for each and every one of us in the society, but let us join together as a community in giving our time, bringing our talent, and commit to the treasure. So any questions about the society, you can talk to me. I'll be around all afternoon. But let's move forward with some testimonials. And people who have been here short time, long time, and want to discuss their feelings about the society. Pat Behrens is on your program, but she's not feeling well today. Amy Schwartz, she's going to come up and say a few things.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. We're after 12. I've been a member since 1993, and I was looking for a place to join, having grown up without any religion on either side of my family. And a humanist religion was exactly right for me, or I should say organization and community. I have enjoyed being a greeter, handing out programs for almost the entire time that I've been here, mainly because it's a wonderful way to meet people, and also I've been involved in a number of other volunteer programs here, and enjoy constantly finding new ones to join. I recommend that anybody who would like to get to know more people and not feel too much like an outsider to volunteer for something, even as a greeter. I'm happy to tell you exactly how to hand out programs. It's not very hard. And you get to work with Maggie. And if you have any questions, I'll be at the door. Thank you.
Is Dave Massey here?
Yes, Dave is here.
Aha!
I believe I can be heard without the use of the mic. In 2008, with my wife having gone through several years of dementia, So we both, who at the time lived in Brooklyn, moved to an independent senior living facility in the Bronx, which is where I live now. I have done some looking into such facilities and decided to choose that for several reasons. In my early years there, I was rather content. I ate at a table which had a retired economics college professor, an optometrist, a retired art historian, and so life at the table was interesting, and such activities as were organized by the facility were also rewarding. But in time, death took its toll on a number of people. The economic circumstances made it so, whereas at one time they would screen people before admitting them, anyone that could pay a month's rent was welcome there. And so I found myself quite less than satisfied with the activities there. And I began to cast about in my mind on where I could go. I knew of the existence of the Society for Ethical Culture. As a youngster, I had been listening to the radio talks of Algernon D. Black. And so I had some notion of what it was, and it sounded like a good bet. So over a period of months, I attended activities here without having joined. I at the same time was attending activities at an organization known as City Congregation of Humanistic Jews, which consisted of mainly of Jews who held on to their heritage but were not theistic, were essentially atheists as I was. I was interested in discussions and meetings with the people and found not enough at the Humanistic Jews, but I felt quite rewarded here at the Society for Ethical Culture. The Thursday leadership meetings, over time, courses in philosophy that were given by a member, John Gertie, whom I miss very much. Sessions where we discuss articles of merit selected by one of the best men here, Joe Schumann. The Sunday platforms, not all of which particularly stimulated me, but enough of them to make me keep going. So you ask for a testimonial which is supposed to mean extolling the virtues of a place. I think Pat the Brogner, presiding here today and elsewhere, pretty well summed it up. You have a place here where you meet with people in a congenial setting, people whose values and views tend to blend in with your own. That process is a process which both affords you pleasure, education, satisfaction, and the sense of a community. So my testimonial to ethical culture is it's a place where I found satisfaction. It filled a void that I had elsewhere. And it also reminded me of things I sometimes say, having become a senior member of my family, when grandnephews or nieces ask me, what is the meaning of life? I tell them, life has meaning only as you give it meaning. Do something, believe in something, support things, and join with your fellow human beings. And so, the Society for Ethical Culture has meaning to me, and I joined it about 6 years ago, and I suppose I'll live out my remaining days.
Thank you. And now we have Sandra Stein.
What ethical society means to me. I'm very grateful to be part of Ethical Culture Society. Meeting people with shared values has meant special friendships and relationships that are very valuable to me. I found people who have humanistic values for society also have them for personal relationships. Also, the stimulating and entertaining events have enriched my life. Exploring life's ethical dilemmas has expanded my curiosity and understanding. I just read a book I loved called The Choice, where the author explains that even after life's serious travails, we can have a choice for a meaningful and free life if we focus on what we have, not what we don't have. Ethical culture is my focus. I'm grateful to be a part of this community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I know everyone's probably getting hungry, but you're going to have to bear with us for one more thing. Steve Sterling, required by our bylaws, we are going to be starting the process of the Board of Trustee nominating committee, and you as members must be notified of that meeting 21 days prior to December 20th. So he is officially going to notify you.
It's not sexy, but you're notified. Each May, the Society membership has the opportunity to elect 3 members to the Board of Trustees to assure that the Board and Society benefit from new ideas, new insights, new perspectives. We are only taking 2 who are current board members if that is the case, but there will always be 1 new candidate and 1 new board member each year. So requiring that each one joins the board every year. That new trustee is required to have been a member of record in good standing for not less than 18 months prior to the election. So L. Miller and I have been appointed by the board to serve as co-chairs. We also have 3 other committee members rounding out a 5-member committee. Those other 3 additional society members are Susan Needles, Amy Schwartz, and Betsy Unger. The responsibility of this committee is to consider every possible candidate who wants to run for the board and to recruit others whom we believe will be most suited to carry out the mission of our society. So this is an opportunity for all of you to think about and possibly join as a candidate. And so we have applications at my table over here today. So if you're interested, please grab one from myself. They will also be in Yalitza's office, in the admin office upstairs. You can grab one from there if you decide later. So if you're interested, pick one up, but you have now officially been notified.
And I'd like to add, we need desperately program people to be on the board. We have a lot of operational people on the board. We need program people. It's not hard. It can be tedious, but it's not hard. Now, before the closing words, at each table, well, let me do the closing words first, okay? This is from Anne Frank. No one ever became poor by giving. Aha, very good. Okay, now at each table, there's a captain. Will the captains all stand up, please? Okay, now, before you can go get food, you have to fill out one of those little forms and give that to that person, okay? All right, so we are officially done with both the community meeting, fair share giving, and the closing words. So enjoy lunch.
Sorry. insightful